Hey, we're going to be talking about our man Noah today, and he wants his team looked at. If you're just watching this video because you love us, hit that like button. We appreciate the support. Let's do this up. Zach, why don't you tell us about Noah's league before we talk about his team?
We are looking at a 12-team league with a half-point PPR scoring. It is a one-quarterback league, roster size of 20, taxi squad of 3, IR size of 1, and your starting roster format is as follows: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots is finished in the league last year. No, it's the league's first year, I should say, and he's currently in second place as of this recording. All right, Mike, well, why don't we look at the team itself? What do you got over here?
So we got Josh Allen, Geno Smith, we got Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, James Conner, Elijah Mitchell, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Romeo Doubs, Dalton Schultz, Greg Dulcich, and draft capital. He's got very early second round pick in 2023, which is the 1 or 2. He's not quite sure yet. Looks like that's it. He moved everything else in 24, a late second, a late third, and he's got everything in 2025 so far. That's a little too far out to project. His biggest concerns are lack of draft capital and general roster construction for the future, and any advice on those concerns will be appreciated. Hey, Zach, I think we could do that. So let's talk about his team trajectory. So for me, this team trajectory, it's a good team, but it needs a little bit of work for this to be sustainable. I think he's got a good shot at the championship this year. What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Yeah, immediately when you look at this roster, you see a very good starting lineup. And when you look at the benches, that's when you start to formulate some questions. I know that Noah did make a note here that he's concerned about his draft capital. I mean, you don't really need to be concerned about that right now, because this is a team that in a single quarterback league can compete for a championship. Do I think it's going to win? No. But at the same time, it can compete. And I mean that, I don't think you're a playoff team and you'll get bounced in the first round. I think you can win some games and potentially get to your championship game. And then who knows, Rashad Penny and Justin Jackson go crazy and you're winning a championship. So, and I'm not speaking about the Rashad Penny on this roster. I'm talking about last year, if you don't know what I'm talking about.
True.
So I wouldn't be worried about the draft capital just yet. Worry about that when you get to the offseason. Worry about that when you get to draft season. Somebody such as myself, who takes over a lot of orphan teams and really does like to rebuild, what I do during the season is accrue draft capital, and I don't intend on using all that draft capital and draft picks closer to draft season. So there may be teams in your league. I mean, clearly somebody has your draft picks. Maybe they want to pick up a veteran player that you're just not that interested in, and you could move that player for a draft pick at the draft time. You don't need to do that now. So compete for your championship, try and win it this year. Maybe there's a small move here or there you can make to add some depth, because we're going to talk about that. But overall, this is a team that can compete for a championship. I don't think it can win it just yet, but you're close. So don't worry about the draft capital just yet.
What are your team needs for Noah's team?
The first thing I look at, again, I notice how good the starting lineup is. But what will separate you in a single quarterback league is 2 things. Primo quarterback, which you have in Josh Allen, and a superstar tight end, which you don't have on this team. You again, just to go over the tight end depth here, we're talking about Dalton Schultz, David Njoku, Greg Dulcich. That's a nice stable of tight ends. But you are every week, and I assume that the teams that have Kelsey and Andrews are probably in the playoff chase right now, which would make it difficult to acquire them right now. I assume that those teams are in the playoff race. So, if you match up against a Kelsey team, you're immediately at a disadvantage because you don't have a tight end that's definitely going to score double-digit points. Schultz and Njoku are more than capable of it, but it's not a guarantee. So for me, a primo tight end, I'm not sure if that's something that is attainable at this point, again, depending on what teams Kelsey and Andrews are on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I coined this term second level depth. Now, what does that mean to me? We looked at this team and we noticed immediately that it's got starting talent. You got Josh Allen, you've got Travis Etienne, James Conner, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Dalton Schultz. These are all starters. But you start to look at the depth, and that's when it gets a little bit questionable. Now, part of that is that Breece Hall is injured. DJ Moore is it's not his fault. It's not his fault, okay? Yeah. But if you had to start Donovan Peoples-Jones or Mecole Hardman, like you're not feeling great about that. You could get double digits from those guys, but you could get 0. You could also get 0 from those players. So second level depth. To me, that's not something that is going to be attainable right away because that's something that to me is going to happen in the offseason. I think that this team again should be competing for a championship, a serious playoff team is how I would say it. And go and compete for your championship, try and win it, and then just make a couple moves in the offseason to get that second level depth, and also to try to replenish your draft capital, which we'll talk about later.
So my team needs overall depth, as you touched on, especially at the running back position, tight end upgrade as well. We're looking at what he has, and so far in the season, he's got Njoku, who's the tight end 14. He has Dalton Schultz, who's really underachieved this year. He's the tight end 24.
He's been hurt, though, and so is Dak.
True. We all had high expectations, and whether they were met or not met by bad player injury, it's still a disappointment. Greg Dulcich, who's a guy that I think all of us, I know Bob and I, especially here at the Dynasty Rebuild, are really high on. He's a rookie. He's at tight end 33. So you're absolutely right. In one quarterback league, this is one way you get an advantage. Got to upgrade that tight end position. Aside from that, definitely need more draft capital. And again, that's something that you want to accrue in the off season, not right now. Right after season ends, trade opens back up. Get you some draft cap. Zach, what do you think are some of this team's core players?
The part where I typically disagree with a lot of people. Well, there's no doubt that Josh Allen is a core player, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Again, you've got Josh Allen every week. You are at an advantage, unless potentially you are going against Mahomes. I put Breece Hall on here. I've come around to Breece Hall, and there's just no denying how he looked when he was healthy this regular season. The problem with Breece Hall, and I know that you and Nate talked about this in your rankings video, is that he's probably not going to be extremely reliable in 2023. However, that's still a core player. To me, that's not a player I'm trying to trade. That's a player I'm building my team around. And that's what I consider as a core player. And then Travis Etienne. This is a running back this year that has looked phenomenal with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. And at the same time, a young player that you can build your team around. I know that the one that we're going to talk about is CeeDee Lamb, and I'll tell you later why I don't consider him a core player.
Well, my core players are Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb is one of them, Travis Etienne, who I agree might have to take a little bit of I was wrong on Travis Etienne and say he is looking great, but he's definitely one of those, and Breece Hall. So I'm not giving up on Breece Hall just yet. If giving up Breece Hall means a shot at a championship, but you get a piece that you could still have be serviceable for a few seasons, might be something that you wanted to consider. Zack, talk to me. Cuts, trades, trade targets. What are you doing if Noah's team is your team?
Yeah, I'm not cutting anybody on this team. This team's got that decent players, and at the very least, you could try to trade these players. I don't just see anybody that I look at and I'm like, no, I don't need to keep this player on this roster. Trade pieces. This is a one quarterback league. So I play in a couple of one quarterback leagues. My philosophy is I got my plug and play starter and I got a depth quarterback. A depth quarterback in a one quarterback league typically looks like Kirk Cousins, a Ryan Tannehill, a spot start quarterback that you need. It's not a Lamar Jackson. You don't need Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes in a one quarterback league. It'd be nice, but it probably costs you a lot to get that. Yeah. So I put Geno Smith on this list. I know that Tom Brady could retire in the offseason, but I'd be trying to get something for Geno Smith while I could. Now, there's not a lot of value for Geno Smith in a single quarterback league. I don't think you're going to be getting like a second round pick for Geno Smith, but you could find a team that has sustained an injury to the quarterback position that needed one, or somebody that needs that Kirk Cousins type depth piece and offer that to them. I also listed James Conner here. I'm not trading James Conner right now unless the deal is just too good to pass up. But if you're trying to replenish your draft capital in the offseason and also not be left holding a falling knife in terms of a running back that's going to be 28 years old, I would consider moving James Conner before it's too late. And I think the value on James Conner is probably a second round pick. And then here's probably going to be the controversial one. I'm trying to shop CeeDee Lamb or DK Metcalf. And here's why. For me, this team is good, but it's not good enough. And you don't have your own first round pick. So the only way that you're going to get better is to try to diversify one of your bigger assets. I'm not a huge CeeDee Lamb fan. And to me, that is the piece that I'd be trying to leverage into. I would try to be targeting Mark Andrews because Travis Kelce's at the end of the rope, seemingly, maybe has another year or two of production left. Mark Andrews would hypothetically have another 5 to 6 depending on how the rest of his career goes. Or I would just try to split that one asset into 2 or 3, because as we've mentioned here, Mike, depth is an issue for this team and draft capital is an issue for this team. And then I put DJ Moore, and I literally put whatever you can get.
So I agree with you in the sense that I'm not cutting anything right now. I'm not cutting anything unless I have to. I always try to trade pieces away before I cut anybody. Although I will admit, I was going through some of my rosters this week because you're having guys come off IR and then you're over the roster limit. There's some guys that you're like, I'm not even going to get a fat buck for this dude. I'm just going to drop him. But, for me, Geno Smith, and listen, you say that Geno Smith is not that valuable in a 1-quarterback league. Yes, but no. Geno Smith, as of right now, this recording is quarterback 7 on the season in a half-point PPR scoring format. And he's ahead of such guys that you might have built a 1-quarterback team around, such as Justin Herbert at quarterback 11, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 12, Trevor Lawrence at quarterback 13, Mr. 1 QB himself, Kirk Cousins, is quarterback 14, and his other guy, Tom Brady, quarterback 18. Check this out. Russell Wilson, quarterback 21 on the season, the guy that Geno Smith replaced. As much as I agree with what you're saying, the stats are saying otherwise, and I think Geno Smith could be a good guy to move on from. You can get the rest of the season out of Tom Brady. You don't need him. Josh Allen already had his bye week. You're good to go. You're good to lock and load and just roll with it. Geno Smith, I would try to move something and try to get Kyler Murray in a package. You know what I mean? Like if you had to add something to it, I know Kyler's hurt at this moment. He's not going to be hurt forever, but that's an upgrade at backup quarterback over Geno Smith in the long term. James Conner is a guy I would move for draft capital for sure. A second will get it done for me. I would move Rashad Penny for literally anything. I don't think Rashad Penny is going to be, I know he looked good when he was, and you're going to hear that he looks good when he's healthy, but the when he's healthy is in capital letters. It's bolded, it's underlined, it might be highlighted in light green number 2. I don't know. Rashad Penny is too big of an injury risk. I don't want to roster him unless I have to. I'd also move Elijah Mitchell for draft capital. The writing's on the wall there. It's not going to be his team anymore. And I would try to move DJ Moore, and I would try to turn DJ Moore somehow into like a Pat Freiermuth. I'd like to move him for a young tight end. I think that would be a big upgrade for this tight end squad. Yeah. Then you can move on from one of these other aging assets. So Zach, let's talk about the rookie targets and your rookie draft strategy. Like, what are you going to be looking at? I know we're kind of projecting out, the season's still going on, but obviously no one wants his team to be better. What would you do if you were in his situation?
I always aim my draft strategy into what are the strengths of the draft. If this was 2022, I would not be trying to need running back, but this is 2023. And the strength of the class in a single quarterback league is running back. But I would be looking for running backs. And at the same time, you don't have a first round pick. So who's going to be available in the second round pick? Well, go back and watch the Dynasty Rewind video of the mock draft that Nate and Bob did a few weeks ago and start looking at some of those players and seeing, if you can land that player with your potential draft pick, because I think it's an early second round pick. But you have to, in the offseason, depending on whatever happens, you win a championship, you not. If you need wide receiver, you can probably get that in this draft. And I think the second round has some pretty good talent from what I've heard from you guys. But I'd be trying to get running back because running back is the strength of this class. And it's not a good tight end class. It's a pretty good quarterback class, but this is a single quarterback league. You don't really need a whole bunch of quarterbacks. You could stay with Geno Smith if you wanted to. Try to get running backs. You could go out and get one of those mid-tier wide receivers that you can get in the second round. But I'd just try to be targeting running back here.
Keeping in mind that you do not have a first round draft pick. Guys that I'd be looking for, and it's not a tight end premium, it's only half point PPR. I'd be looking at Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end. He's going to be probably the consensus number 1 tight end coming out this season if you're unable to land a young tight end through trades or anything else. Josh Downs, wide receiver from UNC, is another guy that I'd be looking to grab. Sean Tucker from Syracuse, you can get him in there. Running back and a starting quarterback. Whoever a starting quarterback turns out to be, the good thing about a 1-quarterback league is you really do not have to be too picky. If you like Bryce Young, if you like CJ Stroud, if you like Will Levis, grab one of those guys, whoever you want. My draft strategy for this team is I want to make the best selection for this team. I want to hit on starting caliber players. This isn't a team that you could have guys hanging around on your bench waiting forever to see if they do anything. I want guys that are starting sooner rather than later. That is what I'm doing with this team. You don't overthink your draft. Draft the best player. Draft the guy that's going to start soonest. So, Zach, before we head on out of here, do you have any closing thoughts on this team?
Just I kind of want to just reiterate what we said earlier. I don't think any of these moves need to be made right away. If you needed to sacrifice a Geno Smith to add a wide receiver depth piece, I might consider that. I just don't think that there's any splash moves to be made right now. This is a write it out, see how this thing goes for the rest of the season. This is definitely a playoff team, and it could compete for a championship. One or two bounces go your way, and you could be right there. You could win the championship. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility here. But for me, when I'm trying to build a dynasty team, I'm trying to build a dynasty. I'm trying to build a team that's going to win for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I think that this team is just it's one or two injuries away from being a top 4 team in the rookie draft. See how this season goes and try to make some moves in the offseason to bolster your depth. And, if you don't necessarily have a bunch of draft capital, like that's okay. It's okay to miss out on a bunch of rookies. Get one or two of them with your second round pick, but people fall in love with rookies. And this team is very close to competing and being a championship contender, a heavyweight contender. So if you can make those one or two moves for proven talent to keep your team relevant, do it. Don't fall in love with draft capital. I'm not saying to trade your draft capital. I'm just saying don't fall in love with having draft capital and rookies, because your team's not old by any means. Like, you've got Josh Allen, you've got Breece Hall, you've got young pieces, Travis Etienne, young pieces that you want to build around. So in the offseason, try to bolster it with veteran proven talent, and definitely use those draft picks, as Mike said, maybe to target one of those running backs, wide receivers, or if you really fall in love with one of those quarterbacks in a single QB league, those guys will be available in the second round.
Well, that is it for this audit today. I do hope you all enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the audit itself. What did you think of the video, and what advice would you offer in this Dynasty Rebuild? And what questions do you have regarding Dynasty Rebuilds? If you want to have your team featured in a Dynasty Rebuild video, you can check out patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind, or you can hit up the YouTube description box below for more details. If you are rebuilding, it's very important to have the right strategies in place and avoid very common mistakes. For just that, check out the 2 videos on your screen now. Make sure you have the right strategy in place and avoid those very common mistakes. But hey, that's going to be it for us today. We will see y'all in the next one, but until then, y'all have a good one.